Hi friends, today I'm going to share the incredible true story of how our friend's life was saved using a fishing rod. Now, this is one of those stories that if I didn't know it was true, I probably wouldn't believe it's true, but here it is. So this happened a little over 5 years ago, and for the sake of the story, I'm going to call her Sarah. So Sarah and her husband were driving between Alberta and British Columbia. And for those of you who are not familiar with Canadian geography, to make that drive, you actually have to travel through the Rocky Mountains. So there are parts of this highway where there are literally tunnels blasted through the mountainside. And of course, during or through those tunnels, you're not supposed to be passing people. But on the day they were making this trip, someone who was traveling in the opposite direction decided to try to pass people in the sections between these tunnels, which are quite short. They're usually only a few hundred meters long. And unfortunately for them, he did not time it right, and he crashed directly into Sarah and her husband's vehicle. Now, as you can imagine, this is highway traveling, so they were traveling at very high speeds, and so it was a very horrific accident, and Sarah actually died on impact. Her heart stopped, she stopped breathing, she had horrific external injuries as well as multiple broken bones. And fortunately enough for Sarah and her husband, traveling behind them happened to be a group of doctors and nurses who were on their way to a wedding. And so they immediately jumped in to help because they saw the accident happen and they knew how horrific it was. And even more fortunate, there was an anesthesiologist who was part of this group of doctors. And so once he saw Sarah and realized that she was dead, wasn't breathing, didn't have a heartbeat, he immediately went back to his motorcycle, which he'd actually been traveling on, and grabbed his fishing rod. And this is where the story is just incredible. So what he did is he broke his fishing rod because he realized it was hollow, and he used this broken piece of fishing rod to intubate her on the spot. Now, I know many of you have probably never tried to intubate someone before, but it is a difficult thing to do even under the best, most controlled circumstances, when you have the proper equipment, when you have lighting. So he was doing this blind, without any of the equipment that we normally have, and he managed to do it. He intubated her with a fishing rod, and he saved her life. Now, I don't think anyone else could have done this to her, but anesthesiologists happen to intubate people all the time. That's part of their regular day-to-day job. And so because he had the wherewithal to act quickly, make this incredible decision, he saved this woman's life. Now, if you want to know what Sarah saw when she died, I will make a part 2 of the video, so come back for that.